All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our webinar today. My name is Katie Robert, and I work for JSI and the Community Health Institute, and I am one of the training coordinators for the New Hampshire McV funded Healthy Families America Home Visitors. And so today we are excited to bring you this webinar to help orient you to some of the training opportunities that JSI has included in our training plan for the year. And this webinar will largely be focused on an orientation to the Institute for the Advancement of Family Support Professionals website. So just a few quick housekeeping items. If you are viewing the webinar in a room with a group full of people, if you could just please chat in the names and the email addresses of the folks that you're watching the webinar with. We will be sending out materials after the webinar, and so we'd like to make sure that everyone is included in that message. If you are not able to chat in the names of colleagues who are in the room with you, please feel free to share the email with them after the event. Also, please chat in any technical difficulties that you might be having into the chat box, and we will try and provide support that way. And then we're also going to save our questions and answers for the end of the session. However, feel free to chat in the questions as they come up throughout the presentation, and we'll go back and field those questions at the end. So next slide, please. So today on our webinar, learning objectives are to learn more about the ongoing training opportunities offered with the New Hampshire McV funds. We're going to walk you through briefly the training plan that the JSI training team has put together. Then we're going to transition to our focus on the Institute's website. We will be walking through how to register with the Institute, how to use the Institute's website individually and as a team. Some New Hampshire specific guidance for module completion, and then also how the Institute is collaborating with Healthy Families America at the national level. So just quickly, I know that many of you have met us and worked with us over the years, but just to put some faces to the names on the emails and the calls that you get. My name is Katie Robert. I'm the project director for the training contract. Joined by Caitlin DeRay, who is a technical advisor who works out of our Boston office. She is up there on the video. We also have Faith Bouchard, who is one of our Jills of all trades for the project, leads our graphic design efforts, manages the technology for the project, works on developing the e-news, and is also the coordinator for all of our event and sponsorships for conferences and things like that. And then we also have Alyssa Carlisle, who is working very closely with the team associated with the CQI component of the HFA work. Many of you know Alyssa in that sense. And Alyssa's also taking on leading the community training component of our work this year, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. So I'm going to let Caitlin DeRay take it from here. She's going to walk us through the training plan just to give you guys a sense of what we've got pulled together for you this year.
Thanks, Katie. Hi, everyone. So we sent out a kind of sneak peek of the training plan a few months ago, which was a short 2-page version. And there's a longer 4-page version coming your way after the webinar today. And so the training plan outlines our community trainings, which are those in-person opportunities that you have to bring your organization as well as community partners together for a variety of different training opportunities, topics, including diversity and fatherhood engagement, supporting LGBTQ families, and other training opportunities. More information on the subscription for 0 to 3. And then the big addition for this 4-page version is related to the webinar today, the e-learning, with links to the individual modules on the Institute website that kind of crosswalk with that survey that went out earlier this year, looking to gather information from your agencies about what your priority training topics are. So we've kind of put together a curated list. The Institute has lots of training opportunities, which you're going to hear more about today, but this helps to kind of crosswalk what the priority trainings are that we identified based on that survey that went out. We also linked to some recorded webinars, and then also have more information on the sponsorships for in-person trainings and conferences. So we'll be sending that out to everyone after the webinar today, and as always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us to clarify anything or provide more information. Next slide, please. All right, so I'm pleased to introduce our presenter for today. Janet Horace is a co-founder of the Institute and home visiting director for the state of Ohio. And she has over 30 years of work experience in the field, starting her career as a home visitor in 1989. And she's joined by her colleague, Sarah Hernandez, who is also going to be walking us through the website. And Janet, I'll hand it over to you, and you can give a more robust introduction for Sarah. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Katie. I am excited to be here with you, and just a little bit of a correction. It's Iowa, not Ohio. And I realize that it's the states with all the vowels. I get it. And it's not Idaho either. Those three get mixed up all the time.
My Midwestern roots are embarrassed. I'm so sorry.
It's all right. Yeah, not the state with the potatoes, you know, just it is, I'm sorry. I know you well enough to give you a bad time about it. And I did share too that when asked about a photograph, I said, yeah, this one's okay. I look younger in this. It was somewhat time in the last 10 years that I had this picture taken. And my hair I can see is darker than it is today because I have to go lighter just to help cover up the gray. And that is what 30 years in the home visiting field will do to a person, in addition to raising kids and as many grandkids as I have as well. So lots of fun, and I'll talk a little bit more about Sarah is with the University of Kansas, Sarah Hernandez, and Sarah is going to do your exploring in the Institute with you. Now, Sarah is a lot younger than I am. She doesn't have bifocals like I do. So I've told her, please move that cursor around slowly on the screen, because like these old eyes have a hard time following it sometimes. So I'll just step in every once in a while so I'll make sure that everybody can understand that. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. So what is the Institute? What's it all about? It is competency-based. It is based on a set of core competencies that on the homepage you can go in and you can look at those. They are very rigorous and they are a little overwhelming because it's not just like a one-page list of competencies. It is multiple pages and with different levels of competence within those. So we first look at, you know, do you know? Can you find that information? Not that we expect anybody to memorize anything. So you need to know where you can find it. The next level up is, can you explain it? Can you demonstrate that you can use that? The next level is, can you extend that learning to the families you serve? So are you capable of teaching that concept to the families we serve? So it's a very intricate set of core competencies. The Institute is primarily all online learning. We do have the ability to have a registration for in-person training as well. Right now, that's really limited to the states of Iowa and Virginia. The Virginia Department of Health is our state partner in this initiative. We started this under a HRSA competitive grant that was an innovation grant. And we had already done some work in both of our states. And what we did was combine and create the Institute, knowing that, you know, why have other states duplicate what's already going on, trying to reserve some of our resources across the nation and stop reinventing the wheel in every single state. But what we really like about it is it's a personalized experience, meaning that even though your state, like every state, will have some very specific trainings that they want you to take, you really can take training based on your needs and your professional development. Everybody enters into this field through a different pathway. And I always say that if I surveyed all of you on the phone right now, we would find that many different pathways of how you got to be in this field of home visiting. I usually share that when I was first asked about home visiting more than 30 years ago, I said, my response back, this was my college advisor, and my response back was, that sounds really depressing. You know, I'm already a single parent taking care of kids and poor, and you want me to go work with poor single parents and then go home and be one. That sounds very depressing. So I wasn't thrilled with the idea, but I did an internship in a home visiting field with a local organization, and I fell madly, deeply in love with home visiting and the families that I served. I still, on occasion, will run into some of those families this many years later, and I have not left the field. It's one of those things that you either really, really like it or you really don't. There's not a lot of in between in this field. But the Institute, the offerings were all designed by the field for the field. So it wasn't somebody coming in that is, let's say that they're a college professor and they're used to teaching classes. It wasn't somebody like that. It was people that are working in this field day in and day out. Again, it's so important because this is a little bit of a different field. There aren't classes that help prepare you in academic institutions for being a home visitor. There are pieces for sure, but there are huge, huge chunks of your job that, quite frankly, unfortunately, fortunately, you learn on the job. And what we're trying to do with the Institute is to provide you those additional supports. We actually have now over 6,000 learners in all 50 states, 2 territories, and there's actually 2 tribes now as well. So our registrations and our participation is growing by leaps and bounds. And I will say that Ohio does have a lot of people registered for the Institute. It's been my little, yes, it's been my little thing of they've got more people registered than the state of Iowa. And I'm like, I can't have that. I am very competitive about silly things. And this is one of those things. It's like, we have got to have more registered users than Ohio. I can't have this. So we've increased 50 in the last month since I've been pushing this. And I'm going to continue to knock on doors, search out who is not registered because I want to get them registered because we have to have more than Ohio. Okay. So why did we create this? I mentioned a little bit about it already, but how can we take what little resources we have for professional development and how can we maximize those as much as we possibly can and avoid duplication? I was actually a few years ago, I was at the National Home Visiting Summit in Washington, D.C., and I was listening to a wonderful presentation by a different state of all the work that they've done. And in my mind, as a program administrator, I started adding up how much that would cost. And I knew how much we'd spent in Iowa on professional development and thought, why are we doing this? If we would share our resources, we would be able to then to take some of those funds that we've been spending on professional development and do something different with them and still have a better professional development system than what we could possibly have on our own. So that's really I call it a co-op model, meaning what does everybody bring to the table? And people may contribute different pieces, but it is trying to bring lots of different states together to create something that's much better than what any one of us could do individually. And again, designed for early childhood home visitors. So very specific that it has a lot of child development and parenting, but many of the other things that you also need to be a home visitor. You may find that other people in your state would like to use it. They certainly can. We've had a lot of states turn to use this with their child welfare workers, their workforce that's in child protective services. In childcare is another field that has turned to the Institute and said this is really useful to us. Just know that those of us that are trying to manage this site, it will always be our primary audience as home visitors. If other people want to use it, great. If it can meet other people's needs, wonderful. But we're going to stay true to this is for home visitors, and that is who we design and our primary focus. The other big deal is it's free. You don't have any registration costs to be able to get on and use this, and you have all these things at your fingertips at no cost. And by having it designed this way, it really does recognize the diversity in the field. Some people come into this work, as I mentioned earlier, from nursing. Some people come into this field from secondary education or elementary education or early childhood. Some come in from a social work background, and then there's everything in between. And so we want to recognize that all those different fields bring important pieces to the work of a home visitor, but none of them have the whole picture. And this helps fill in those gaps. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide. So the other reason we did it is so you can do more of what you love. You know, we know that home visitors, what you like doing is you like being out with families. Nobody's going to raise their hand if I ask for a show of hands of who wants to do more documentation. Who wants to set in a training, an all-day training, when maybe 5 minutes of it will pertain to you and your job and you'll have actually learned something? This lets you focus on what you need specifically and not mess with things that you already have, or you already have that competence developed. And that allows you to spend more time doing the things that you love. So that work directly with the families. You can go ahead and advance. So getting started is a real piece of cake. It seriously is. I always say I'm a digital immigrant. Somebody like Sarah is a digital native. And you'll see the difference if you saw us moving around on a computer. I remember the very first time I used a computer, this was like early 1990s, and the instructor said, "Janet, why are you moving the mouse with your left hand? Are you left-handed?" And I said, "No, I'm right-handed. It was just on the left side of my computer." They said, "Move it over to your right hand." That's a digital immigrant of, I didn't know the difference, that it should have been on my right side and right-handed. Crazy now to think about it. So it's really, really simple. I mean, it'll take you like less than 5 minutes to go in and get registered. You go in, you create an account, and then everything gets saved to one place. And Sarah will show you exactly how to do that. But as I said and did it during a meeting and got it done while there was a less than a 5-minute conversation going on, went on, registered, done. Really slick. Okay, you can go ahead. So we've talked about some of the things that are offered, but the ever-growing catalog of online and e-learning modules, it continues to grow. There are new ones that we add every 2 or 3 months. We just added one that's on hope and resiliency, which if you focused anything on adverse childhood experiences in your state, there's an ACEs 101, there's the hope and resiliency, and there's historical trauma. That's kind of a little suite of ACEs focused work. So if that's an interest of yours, you could go in and find that. We also just added a module called oral health education for home visitors, because we felt like that was something that didn't give a deep enough dive. Hawaii has identified that we don't have any failure to thrive specific module, and that's a real need in their state. And so that is one that they will be working with us on developing, a failure to thrive module. So you'll see what we already have. We also are in the process of updating some modules that are a little bit older, but we're always adding and looking for what do we need. It can be a little overwhelming. And when Sarah goes into the site, just take a deep breath and don't get overwhelmed by the sheer number. And I know your folks have done a really good job of helping you identify what are the ones that are the best fit for your state. And we'll share that with you as well. But there is the ability to have this in-person classroom registry. And again, it's only used right now in Iowa and Virginia, but that is something that will be available sometime in the future to more states. But you can have all your online training right there in one place. And it's easy to also share when you've completed your training. So we'll also show you how to do the share with somebody your results or what training you're working on. We always encourage you to do that with your supervisor. Your supervisor is the person that is most interested in your professional development, and that's part of their job, is to help you develop as a leader and a professional. And so using that feature to share what you're working on with them is great. And we can also talk about how to do that during supervisory meetings as well. You can go ahead and advance. So this is the Let's Explore, where I'm going to turn it over to Sarah, and she'll show you how to get registered, how to check out your dashboard, and checking out a module. And we're going to share the it's either family or parent engagement, part 2, and it has this really cool segment that I just have to talk about before I turn it completely over to Sarah. It is what I call Choose Your Own Adventure. I don't think we call it that because that's a copyrighted or trademark name. But if you remember when my kids were little, they had these choose your own adventure books, and you would read so far, and then you'd have to make a decision of what do you want to do next? Do you want to take that raft on the Amazon, or do you want to take this trail on the next to the Amazon River? So this is the same kind of concept. We get to a certain point and the video will stop in this home visit, and you get to make a decision of what do you want to do next. And so it's really exciting. It can lead to a really great outcome on that home visit, till it can lead you to a place where you think, I am being very politely asked to leave this home visit. It's polite, but no nonsense. I want you out of my house. And I am sure that you have experienced that at some point in time in your career, of being politely, maybe not so politely at times, asked to leave. Okay, Sarah, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thanks, Janet. So I'm going to jump into the Institute. So what you can see here, hopefully, let me resume my share here, that you can see the Institute website, and the URL is institutefsp.org. And if any time I start talking too fast or that mouse goes at high speed, please let me know. Janet did tell me I need to slow down so she can see where the mouse is. So what you can see here is I haven't signed in or anything. This is just what the home page of the Institute looks like. And so Janet mentioned earlier that this is a competency-based platform and application. And so underneath the big sign up button, you can actually have a look at the competency framework. I'm not sure if that's something that you all have already explored within your state, but you can certainly see the levels that Janet was referencing earlier. You can open it up in a PDF format. And we also have a link. It's really important for us to show the spread, the wingspan, I guess, if you will, of Institute supporters. And so we offer an opportunity for folks who are representative of models or states to let us know that they support the Institute, and hopefully that means that they're also promoting it within their state. You can see also that we have, if you scroll down a little bit on the page, we have a couple of modules that are listed. These are kind of rotating modules, but before we even kind of jump into a module, I would very much encourage everyone to, if you haven't already registered, to make sure before you do any work in the Institute that you are signing in. It doesn't force you to do that because we wanted to allow people an opportunity to cruise the site without actually committing to anything. But if you complete a module and you're not signed in, the system doesn't record your progress. So just make sure that before you jump in and start any work that you are signing in. Further down on the homepage, you can actually jump to a list of seeing all of the modules that we have in the Institute. A little bit further down, you can also learn a little bit more about each of the competencies that are listed within the domains of the framework. And kind of at the very bottom of the homepage, you can learn a little bit more about the Institute and how we came to be. And then we also have some information about features and updates that are going to be hitting the website soon. So let's just go ahead. I'm going to just create a new account with you all so you can see what the process is. So you can either, if you've already signed up and registered with the Institute, you would just sign in this upper right-hand corner here that says sign in. If you haven't, you would select sign up here in the middle of the screen. I'm going to go ahead and create a new account. And I actually had to create a new email address because I have a lot of email addresses already within the Institute with all the testing. So I will say that any account that you create with the Institute is yours to follow you. And so I would just put out there that when you create an account and potentially you use a work email address and maybe sometime down the road you leave your job, but you still want access to your training, and maybe you forgot your password, and that forgot password email is going to go to your old email account that you used to work with, and you don't have access to it. Unfortunately, because of the way that the system is built, we do not have access to join accounts or to manually change the email address registered to your account. So you can certainly share your progress with yourself, and that's a feature I'll get to in just a moment. But I think this is just a cautionary tale of making sure that however you register this account, you would want to make sure that you have access to that email address moving forward. Hopefully my passwords match. If they don't, we'll find out momentarily. So after you enter your name and email address, we're just ask a few questions of information that we'd like to collect about you all. I'm in Kansas. My time zone, which I perpetually get wrong, and my zip code. So some of these fields will be collected to kind of do some assessment on the folks that are using the Institute. Also, we'll pull some information on kind of which modules are being completed most in certain areas. And so right now we have just a standard set of questions that we ask. These are may change in the future. But for now, you can kind of see what we have. And I do not have a model affiliation. And let's see if it lets me sign up. There we go. And I will save my username. Okay, so it kind of looks the same, right? So how do you know if you're signed in? If you're signed in, you'll see your name here. We will welcome you and say hello, whatever name you've used. That way you can tell the difference between the signed out and signed in homepage. So depending on the workflow that you all emphasize, and I haven't been part of those conversations, so if someone else wants to jump in, feel free. The first place you might want to check are modules, right? So if you select the All Modules tab at the top of the screen, a list of module cards will show up. And so you'll see on the left-hand side of the screen that you can search by name. So if you all have a framework or a requirement of Institute modules that you must complete, you can search by the name if you know it. We also have several authors that contribute to the development or content of the modules. Each of the competency framework has a certain skill that's tied to it. And so you can search by skill. We actually have some modules that are specific to home visitors, but also more specifically to supervisors. So if you're a supervisor and you would like to see which modules are developed with a supervisory lens, you could certainly check that box. Or you can look, search for online modules, and Janet indicated that we have a couple of states that are currently using an in-person feature as well. So if you wanted to just search by modules that are available online, then you would be able to select that. So I believe, Janet, you wanted to check out the family engagement module?
Yeah, the part 2.
Okay. So I'm just gonna, for search purposes, I'm just gonna type in family engagement and let's see what we get. So currently there are 2, and Janet would like to check out the part 2. So I'm just going to select the title of the module, and that's going to take me to essentially the module page. So what you'll find here is a brief description, an explanation of the content that should be covered in the module. You're going to find the author. You're going to have some supplemental materials. So this could be a resource guide, a resource list for a certain region. It's typically going to be a PDF document. Also, we're going to tell you about how long it will take to complete the course. We know that you all are really busy and time is always of the essence. And so there are some modules that are longer in length. And so this just allows you an opportunity to plan accordingly. And then the last piece of the module information, we are also going to tell you the skills within the competency that are going to be addressed within this module.
Hey, just before you launch the module,
Sure.
Sarah,
Yeah.
I just wanted to emphasize the learning and resource guides. We're in the process of making sure that every single module has these. So you should see that in the next, I'd say 30 to 60 days, that those, and they may already be there, but it will be updated. But when we talk a little bit later about how to use the Institute and using it in a team setting, the learning and resource guides become critically important. So I just wanted to emphasize that of where those were at and where you can find that. Because now how I like to think of it is like book club is, so if you were using this in a team setting, you could either all together do the module together, or you could do it independently, come back together and use the learning guide. But the learning guide could be used during a team meeting to extend that learning. And it could be used individually with a supervisor too. But some people, when you talk about group setting, now just think of my version of book club. No, we can have chocolate, probably not a glass of wine, but think of it like a book club kind of atmosphere of where you're coming at it with, this is my experience when I watch this module. And then again, specific questions and things to extend that learning that are contained within those learning guides.
Great. So we'll go ahead and launch the module here. And sorry, you all asked earlier if I had any audio video issues, and it turns out that we do. I don't actually know if this specific module has any volume that may have any issues. So something to be aware of. So the Institute, when we are testing, when we launch modules or when we launch new features, we're primarily testing in Google Chrome and Firefox. And so those are the two browsers that we would prefer you use. You could use Internet Explorer or Microsoft Edge. It's just not something we are not typically testing through those browsers. It's typically just Chrome and Firefox. So that's just a word of advice before jumping in. Can you all hear the volume as the module is playing? You can't. Okay. So there are some modules that are play a video. So right now, what essentially is happening is there is a script that is being read as to what you will find within the module. This module specifically has volume apparently that is playing on every button. I think some of our newer modules have accessibility features, and so for those that may be easier to navigate if they hear an instruction, but also you can see that this module specifically is pretty self-intuitive. It's pretty intuitive on how to navigate through it. So you can see on the left-hand side, there's an index, if you will, and then on the bottom right, there is a next button. So you can turn up the volume, so you can monitor the volume, you can play the script, or you can pause it. So for this purpose, we're gonna go ahead and go next. So specifically, there is a voice that's reading the module, but it is also providing some context as to what you're going to be seeing in the rest of the module. I apologize. We probably should have tested this. Janet, is there a part of the module that you wanted to specifically show off? It is 45 minutes, so I'd hate to have to.
No, I wouldn't do the whole 45 minutes, but if you
Right.
go to the next thing is an interactive of where you pick out the strengths, and it's, so if you'd go ahead and go to that, and if we could at least get the video started. Oh,
Sarah, Sarah, if you want
Yes.
to pause the sharing and reshare, there will be an option to share the browser audio.
Okay, great.
So that might work. There was also a suggestion about clicking on the closed captioning option
Sure.
to show that feature.
Great.
Whichever one.
yeah, as Sarah's doing that, I would also say with the closed captioning, it is something that our module developer James Madison University, they're Regent University in the state of Virginia. They are having closed captioning on all of their modules. So any new module, they'll go back and retrofit that on the old ones. But the closed captioning, one of the things that's nice about that is if English is not your primary language, you have the ability to do the closed captioning and then have that translated into the language that you're most comfortable with. Now, we know that there are always issues when you're doing translating on a computer. As much as you'd think we'd be advanced enough to be able to do this and do it right, there will be probably some issues with understanding different dialects, etc. But and sometimes the written language is more difficult than hearing it. But anyway, that closed captioning is a nice feature. I know that I use it not for the translation of language, but I use it in my cubicle environment if I cannot play sound out loud and I've left my headset at home, of using closed captioning on different training modules.
Okay, so I'm gonna
Communication skills,
and
sharing
can you hear it
resources
now?
and information, engaging the whole family, and using adult learning principles.
So you can see that the
All families, even those facing
Janet,
serious challenges,
these are
have
ones that we'll
strengths,
have to wait
though they may not be aware of
to
them.
play through.
You can build a parent's confidence by helping them identify and focus on their strengths. If you focus only on their problems and on problem solving, parents can become discouraged. Write down a strength and a weakness of your family, either your family of origin or your current family. Then, look at the illustration and identify 8 to 10 strengths, positive aspects, that you see in the picture. Click on the different strengths you see to check your answer and learn more about why they are a strength. When you're done, you can click Next to review all the different strengths shown on this screen.
So what I like about this exercise is at first glance, you'd think, oh my gosh, there's a space heater there. That kid is standing on the back of the couch. He's certainly going to fall. And I see cigarette smoke going on, and it's easy to pick out the negative things. This helps you with that, reframing your mindset on looking at those things as strengths. So together, if you can unmute yourselves, let's talk about what are some of the things that you see that are strengths, and you can also put it in the chat box, and we'll see that when that comes up. So Sarah, first click on that space heater that I looked at and first said, oh, it's a danger, but they have heat and electricity. That's a good
I've
thing.
unmuted everybody, so feel free to pipe in.
What's something else from somebody else?
The dad and child are hugging.
Yes. There's lots more strengths.
They've got fresh fruit in the kitchen.
There's a plant. There's a boy playing with a toy.
There's family pictures.
The record player.
I think there's food on the table too, from a coffee table.
A roof over their head.
I think you get the idea of what we're doing here is just, again, that strength-based approach, and it's always good to serve as a reminder. And again, it's a little different than setting and reading or setting and having somebody here listening to somebody lecture. So all the modules have this type of interactive element of where you are forced to move the mouse, make clicks, interact with the technology. And again, of course, that's adult learning principles at work, which you all know that. So I know Sarah's clicking on some different things, but you're getting the idea of this is just a great example of one of the ways that we, the build-ins of interactive that engages the learner. And so one of my requests when we started working on the Institute was we cannot have boring. I'm not a boring kind of person. I will check out if I'm too bored on stuff, that it has to be engaging. And my one example of online learning was the most boring training that was required that we do every year within the state of Iowa. And it was awful, absolutely awful. And they have since changed that, by the way, and it is much more engaging and in more bite-sized pieces. But it was a terrible training. And so that was my example of whatever we do, we don't want it to look like that, of where you're sitting and listening and it goes on for like 2 hours of sitting and listening. There's no interaction. That would be horrible. That is just not anything that follows any kind of adult learning principles. So let's go ahead and we'll launch the next segment. There may be some stuff here that will talk about, hey, yeah, you did a really good job.
You can see it's possible to find strengths, even in a family that may be experiencing challenges. Support parental competence by seeing them as the decision makers. Celebrate their successes and help them keep sight of everything they've accomplished despite their struggles. The fact that they've solved problems in the past makes it easier to believe they can do it again. Offer praise that highlights specific accomplishments. I want to take a moment to acknowledge what you've already accomplished. You've made so many steps in the direction you wanted to go already, let's not lose sight of that. Remember where you were a year ago? Being vague, such as saying, "You're doing such a good job," or "You're great with your daughter," doesn't really tell the parent anything and can sound patronizing. Avoid focusing too much on what went right in the past, because the family could feel like you don't realize how hard things are right now. It's a delicate balance, but it gets easier with experience. When problems do arise, help the family identify the strengths that exist within the family, their friends, and their community. These relationships are the family's most important resource as they face any challenge. Ask questions such as, how can you help each other through this? What kind of support do you have right now from your family and friends? You are about to become part of a virtual visit in which you must help Laurel make a decision that may result in very different outcomes. Watch the video and pay attention to details. Click the play button on the video to begin.
Whatever you selling, we ain't buying.
No. I'm Laurel. Laurel West, your home visitor. Tia, is now still a good time for the appointment?
AC's out. Might want to lose a sweater. That don't look like homework to me.
Well, I'm home, and the TV's working.
Okay, go get your sister, will you?
I'm waiting for a commercial.
Keenan, I said go get your sister.
Hey, Keenan.
How is your visit going so far? Enter your responses in the text box and click Submit.
So how do you think this home visit's going? I can feel the tension on my end of just like, Tia looks scared to death, and then she looked like she'd rather be any place other than where she's at, the home visitor. And, you know, the idea of walking up to a house and hearing loud voices and arguing, pretty common. Doesn't make me feel comfortable, but not that uncommon, but very realistic. What else, something else that you noticed?
Mom still let her in.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And that's a really good reframe on those, looking at the strengths. The mom was willing to let her in, which sometimes I think we forget what a gift that is when parents let us into their home. Okay, let's go ahead and go a little bit further, Sarah. I want to get to that place of where you got to make some decision. Well, here.
Tia yet about the purpose of the visit. If you were Laurel, which option would you choose? Click to choose.
So which one do you guys want to do? You want to follow her in the kitchen? Or do you want to stop and introduce yourself?
I'd like to introduce myself.
Okay, let's go there.
You decided to introduce yourself to Arnell. Click to play the video and see what happens.
House usually isn't like this.
Oh, my name is Laurel. I'm the home visitor.
I know what you're here to do. Hey, Jada, bring me the dustpan, will you? And take those sunglasses off. I want to see your eyes when you're rolling them.
Yes, ma'am.
Take the marbles out of your mouth and try that again.
Yes, ma'am.
The way these kids mumble, you think they were teaching that instead of Spanish.
Tony, Mom, leave it.
I'm Laurel. It's nice to meet you.
Ma, leave it.
To when, huh?
Excuse me?
Tia, maybe there's another place we could talk.
I'll leave them if you want. Like the dishes and the laundry and the electric bill.
You leave the bills because you have no way to pay them.
Tia,
Watch
maybe...
yourself. Jada, where you at with the dustpan?
Let her be.
She your child or mine?
Depends on the day, I guess.
Mama!
You gonna get that?
Mama!
Tony.
Mama!
Tony, not now. Not
She's
now.
hungry.
Yeah, and there's some cereal in the cabinet
They're
for her.
stale.
How's it taste? Probably better than mine.
Okay, I think we'll go ahead and stop. And we'll leave you with the anticipation of, what would happen next? Was that the right choice to make? Now I've hopefully will make you want to go in and finish this module.
All right, so I'm going to jump back to modules. So I just clicked at the top of the page. So you can see that I didn't complete the module. In an effort to show you what it looks like for a completed module, I'm actually going to quickly switch accounts and use a different account where I have completed more modules so I can show you some additional features within the site. So as you can see now, you can tell that I'm signed in. And so in order to see modules that you've completed, you can select the Your Dashboard tab at the top of the page. And so you'll see a list of modules that you've recently completed, but if you scroll down, you'll also see a list of modules and the status of those modules. So you can see that the most recent module that I've completed is listed, the date that I started it, the date that I completed it, and then I'll also be able to see the certificate that I received following completion of the module. So it has my name, the date that it was completed, and the title of the module. So that's a way for you to see your progress. If you wanted to share your progress with either a supervisor or a peer or maybe your team, you would be able to enter the email address here. And so at that point, they would then have access to the same list that we just saw in the Your dashboard. They would also have the same view.
And this is the part that I mentioned earlier where we really encourage you to share with your supervisor. And your state may have additional requirements or requests of you about who you share your information with. One of the things I want you to also share, Sarah, or show is, I don't think this is live yet, but it will be, the ability to toggle back and forth, because New Hampshire is a Healthy Families of America state.
Okay.
And so when the Healthy Families America site, their training is online, this is going to be really helpful for them on to toggle back and forth between the Institute platform and the Healthy Families America site on the platform.
Sure, that's wonderful. So one of the features that we will be building will allow, as Janet said, learners to be able to register, toggle between different sites that they're registered for. So HFA will be kind of a password protected site, but then they will also, much like you all are talking about, they will have certain institute modules that meet their HFA training criteria. And so they will have a page that is built within their own platform that will outline the HFA training requirements, and then they will identify which institute modules satisfy those requirements. And so what you see here at the top, when the feature is launched, you would essentially see a drop down. And so using the same username, the system will recognize that, oh, Sarah is registered in both the Institute and also HFA's TLC Plus website. And so then the system will allow me to navigate seamlessly between the Institute and the HFA site. With that build, we'll also have, again, one like central place where training certificates will be kept. And so if there are trainings that you complete that are HFA required trainings, because they will also have some of their own modules on their learning management site, but it will also house essentially the modules and certificates that you've achieved or earned within the Institute as well. So if someone shares their progress with you, you would go to your account, you would click on the Hi Sarah or Hi whoever you are, and select the Shared with Me. And there, a list of those learners would appear here. And so Charlie Moore has shared their status with me. And so then I'm also going to be able to see that Charlie's activity within the Institute. Again, you can see a list of the modules that they've started, which ones they've completed, and the dates that those modules were complete. Additionally, you'll be able to see the skills that have been achieved. And a feature that we're going to be having launched later on will be digital badges. And so you will also be able to see any badges that a learner has either applied for or earned through the Institute. Additionally, in the account, you can see my events. So much like modules are listed, this is where an event, an event list would appear if you've attended in-person events. So I believe we've discussed the registration piece. We have jumped into a module. I guess what I didn't show you is what it looks like when you've actually completed a module. So let me jump to a module that I've actually completed. So once I complete a module, and in order to get back to the site, at the top of the module page, there was the back button, and then it has the module name. You would just select that. And then after that, there's going to be a quiz option that you can check for understanding to make sure that you have taken away the things that the module intends you to take away with, that outlines each of these skills that are addressed within the framework. And then again, you'd be able to access your certificate of completion on this page as well. Janet, is there anything that I've missed on the page that you want to make sure that we highlight?
Yeah, I just want to ask our hosts,
Sure.
the New Hampshire training team, why we're still here. I know you asked for people to hold questions till the end, but why we're in the Institute site. Is there anything that you would like us to show, or do you want to have any questions asked while we're inside of the site?
There was one question that came in, Sarah, if you could show the closed captioning option to show what that feature looks like when you're in a module. And then we can also open it up to the group if there are any specific questions while we're in here. Now would be a good time. You can chat those in or ask through audio microphone once Sarah has demonstrated the closed captioning.
So I'm just going to jump back into the family engagement module that we were in. Because some of the modules are older, as Janet mentioned, some of these features will look different, but most of the newer, more recently completed modules will have the closed captioning feature. And so on the left-hand navigation here, there's a menu, and there's also a closed caption link. And so if you select closed captioning, as you are navigating throughout the
Welcome to
slide,
the Institute for the Advancement of Family Support Professionals training on family engagement. This two-part series of online modules will give you information and strategies you can use to engage and support families.
I had a few questions. I can start with at least one of them to give other folks a chance to kind of put their thoughts together. Sarah, you had mentioned that if you were going to change your email address or something, that you wouldn't be able to make that change after the fact. Are users able to change their email addresses on their account before an email change happens?
Yes, I believe the email address can be changed. Yeah, they should be able to edit the email address here, and then it would be saved.
Great. Would you recommend perhaps setting up accounts with a personal email address instead of a work email address to help prevent issues down the road?
Sure, I think because one can't ever predict the future, I think for ease of use, and because the use of the Institute really is kind of more of an individualized personal experience, I think providing a personal email account would be easiest for future ease.
And one technical follow-up question, if users have questions or need support while they're going throughout the modules, either whether it's, you know, an account question or maybe they thought they finished a quiz, but it didn't register, is, you know, where can they go with questions?
Sure, that's a great question. And there at the scrolling down to the bottom of the page, and it should appear at the footer of each of the pages, there's a little contact link. If you select contact, questions, comments, and then you can just reach us. And so here at KU, we have a team that facilitates any inquiries that are sent to this email address. So if it's something that we can't answer, if it's greater than a technical question, if it is perhaps a specific training question, we will facilitate technical questions and then forward folks to the appropriate parties when necessary.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Other questions from our participants? Feel free to chat in, or everyone should be unmuted, so you can go ahead and ask. Okay, well, if it's all right, I'm going to monopolize the Q&A period, and I have two more questions. And I know that you might not have the answer to it right now, but just in case anyone else is wondering, do you know what the timeline for the launch will be of the integration between the Institute website and the HFA Learning Center website? And then, yeah.
Sorry. Yes, Sort of. Right now, our team is busy working on the certification exam, and so at this point, that's our primary focus. And so once we have the certification exam launched, moving to the enhancement to allow for the single sign-on will be our next area of focus. So we are hopeful that by fall, that will be up and running for the partners that we have that are using that feature.
So will folks be able to access the Learning Center modules through the Institute website as well, or is it more single direction where they log in through the Institute and they can see the Learning Center information?
Yeah, great question. No, they'll be able to toggle between the two. And so if you log in via the Institute, the system will recognize that that login has access to more than one system. And so at that point, you'll be able to toggle between the two. If you log in through the HFA site, also, it will recognize that you should also have access to the Institute. And so much like the account button here at the top has a drop-down menu, so will that be the case when the enhancement is built. And so you would be able to toggle between the Institute and HFA in the same way as this drop-down menu works.
That's really exciting. I think it would be great to have you guys back once that integration happens to walk us through some of that new functionality. So
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, do you want to take us back to the PowerPoint?
I do.
Because I think we got a couple more slides, and we may have already covered some of those things that are in the next few slides, but I'd like to go back to them. And yeah, so this is a little bit of what to do if you're overwhelmed. And, you know, so if you come into your job, or you have right now, you have home visiting experience, and we want you to kind of check with your supervisor to see, to get your supervisor's expertise and where they would like you to go next. If you're brand new to the field, and again, these are just recommendations, we have given you some recommendations of modules to start with, because I think there are 67 modules. It's a little overwhelming. And so these is just a list of modules that we say you could start with. And in New Hampshire, you may have other specific modules that you'd like to see people take. I know you've done a really good job of building that into your New Hampshire training plan, your state training plan, and so it may look a little bit different for you in your state. You can go to the next one. Yes, so perfect. I'd forgotten that you added this. So yeah, you can look at, here's your state training plan, and it has your very state specific recommended modules that fit very nicely in with your state training plan. So that's where you would go to. Okay, next slide. And so we've talked a little bit about how you could do this in a team environment, because some people are choosing to do that, and they work in a team environment. In Iowa, we're spread out in a larger geographic area, and so some of our home visitors are pretty isolated. I mean, they're there by themselves, and so that makes it just a little bit more challenging. But you can take the modules in a group setting. You don't have to take them individually. Some states are using like large screens, and so they're projecting it up on a screen in a conference room and doing it all together. I mentioned about the learning and resource guides and how you could potentially use those. We are in the process of getting that learning and resource guides done for every single module. The resource guides give you resources, and we've been pretty careful with the new ones that we're developing that they're more national resources, and they may give you some specific examples of states, but it's meant so that anyone in any state, any area could pick them up and use them and be able to access these resources. They also are good about going in and checking to make sure all the links work and the resources are still up to date. So you can go to the next slide. So I want to talk just a little bit about future plans and potential partnerships. We really want this to fit within a comprehensive professional development strategic plan. You know, you have one in your state. We'd like to have a national professional development strategic plan, and online learning is just one piece of that. We're working with the Council for Professional Recognition. They're the folks that offer the CDA, and they would like to use the online modules to meet the classroom training requirements for the home visitor CDA. which is a win-win all the way around. Our state in particular, in Iowa, we don't use the home visitor CDA, but we know that there are states that require it. Arkansas has that in their code. So it's in law that home visitors have to have the home visitor CDA. And now they're required to pay money at a college to get the classroom training. So this will also help free up some of those resources again. We're working with and I cannot remember their name, it used to be, we call it the Michigan model, but the infant mental health endorsement. They're in the process of doing a crosswalk and saying how our two initiatives work together, and so how the modules can help lead you to the infant mental health endorsement and count for some of the requirements on that. We've talked about Healthy Families America, but it's a very exciting partnership. They were in a place where they needed to update their online training content, and they said it was really old. I've not seen it, so I don't know, but that it was like more than 20 years old, and that they needed to make some changes. So they were looking at a platform for their training to live on, and approached us to say, can this HFA training live on your platform? And we were delighted to be able to make that work. We're in some negotiations with another large evidence-based model to also partner with them for their online learning, and again, making it easier for the end user, so it's all in one place. We're also working with individual states. I mentioned Hawaii of saying that they would like to contribute funding for the Failure to Thrive module to be developed. Some states are looking at the online e-learning is to fulfill specific needs for training for childcare, especially kinship care. Some states have built the Institute into their professional or the preschool development grant. So there's just a lot of different things happening, all very exciting. I can tell you it's a little difficult to keep a handle on all of the different things. As we say, the Institute is growing all the time, and a little difficult to keep a handle on all these different partnerships. You can go ahead and move to the next slide. So we just encourage you to sign up. And if you haven't, go ahead and sign up today, and I'll be able to, I can actually go in and I'll be able to tell you how many registered users you had before today, and then how many you have after today. That would be good data. So I will provide that to you. We won't show you the trailers, but there's these nice little trailers if you're trying to explain this to other people that talk about different aspects of the Institute. And again, a trailer is just like what you think it might be, like for a movie. Tells you it's like a less than a minute little description using video. You can go ahead. So now we're at the open questions. Is there any other lingering questions that you have about the Institute, how to use it? And if there are questions for your New Hampshire training team, this is a good time to ask those as well.
I'm sorry I got so excited and asked all my questions earlier.
It's all right. It's all right. I wanted to make sure. I thought sometimes it's easier, at least it's easier for me to see it. And so I thought while we're in the Institute, it's easier to ask those questions while we're in there that are specific to how features work than it is when we're outside of it.
Well, I think it'll be exciting to see what other models are integrated into the Institute's website down the road, because I know here in New Hampshire, so many of our family support staff are cross-trained across multiple models and are, meeting many criteria and many credentialing requirements. So we're so excited that we came across this resource and have been able to partner with you to help bring the information to everyone and help us streamline our training opportunities. So
great. Well, we have an expert panel that provides us expertise, subject matter expertise, and the Home Visiting Model Alliance has representatives that serve on that. We have Carrie Caverly from Parents as Teachers. We did have Kate Whitaker from Healthy Families America, and I'm sure her replacement will take her spot on that. We have somebody from Safe Care, and we have Molly from Nurse Family Partnership. So those are the four that the Model Alliance has elected to serve on our expert panel, and they have been wonderful advocates. People often ask, are the models okay with you doing this? And they're more than okay. They love it because it allows them to focus on the aspects of training about their model and not have to get into the intricacies of home visiting. How to handle different situations. So it lets them focus on training for their model specifically. We sometimes also get asked, how does HRSA feel about this? Well, remember, HRSA helped fund it. So that should answer, but they're also really, truly excited. We've done grand rounds for HRSA. We have follow-up meetings with HRSA. They're very excited also what we can learn and what they can learn about what the field needs. This is a very undefined field. If you ask them how many home visitors there are in the country, I don't know that anybody could give you a really great answer, or what the backgrounds of those home visitors are. There's been a few different studies, but I'm not sure that people could answer it. So even just that registry, that information helps tell us a little bit more about our story of home visitors and who's doing this work. Any other questions? Well, not hearing any, I'm going to turn it back over to our New Hampshire hosts. Feel free to have us to hop on another call in the future. We're more than happy to do that. And sometimes when you get into the Institute and actually start using it is when you might have more questions, or then might say, hey, have you guys ever thought about, this subject matter, that we should really have an online module for this? We really do want that feedback. It's really important to us. ASHFE, which is the Association of State and Tribal Home Visiting Initiatives, is launching a professional development work group. I don't want people in it like me. I don't want state leaders in it. I mean, that's fine. I shouldn't say I don't want them in, but I really want home visitors and supervisors to be in that group. You're the end user for this. It's, I can give my opinion all day, but I am not the end user that we're targeting. And so we really need, it's bigger than just the Institute, but I'd really like to see more home visitors and supervisors sign up for that work group. It's all, the meetings are all using Zoom, so you don't have to travel across the country to be able to participate. So I'd like you to think about that too, if that is something that you'd be willing to give some time and have a little team that would represent on that committee. That would be terrific. If you want more information about that, just let me know and I can get you hooked up. How does that sound? Okay, great. Thank you so much.
All right, well, thank you both, and we really appreciate your time this afternoon and sharing this wonderful resource. It's really going to be beneficial and exciting. I know I started taking a number of the modules and completing them, and it's hard to rein yourself in. There's a lot of wonderful resources. So thank you for all of your work and your time today. And we'll be sending out a follow-up email with the full training plan and the link to the evaluation today for your feedback on the webinar. And we look forward to having you back to hear about the HFA update later this year. Thank you. Bye, everyone.